Hi class! Right now we're going to practice multiplying rational numbers with decimals and fractions. When we're done, we should be able to multiply rational numbers using fractions and decimals. First, we're going to be practicing multiplying decimals.
We're asked to multiply 32.12 or 32 and 12 times 0.5 or just 5/10. Now when you multiply decimals, you multiply them the exact same way you would multiply whole numbers, and then you count the number of spaces behind the decimal you have in your two numbers you're multiplying, and you're going to have that many spaces in your product. And let me show you what I'm talking about. So let's just multiply these two characters. So we have 32.12 times 0.5. And when you write them out, you can just push both of them all the way to the right. You could almost ignore the decimal. Right now, you should write the decimal where they belong. But you can almost pretend that this is 3,212 times 5. And then we'll worry about the decimals in a second. So let's get started. So if we were just multiplying 5 times 3,212, we would say, well, 5 times 2 is 10. Regroup the 1. 5 times 1 is 5, plus 1. Plus 1 is 6. 5 times 2 is 10. 5 times 2 is 10. Regroup the 1. And then finally you have 5 times 3 is 15. Plus 1 is 16. And then we don't have any other places. This 0 really isn't, if we were just doing this as 0, 5, we wouldn't multiply 0 times this whole thing. We'd just get 0 anyway. So just 5 times 3,212 gives us this number. But now we want to care about the decimals. We just have to count the total number of spaces or places we have behind the decimal point in the two numbers we're multiplying. So we have 1, 2, 3 spaces, or 3 numbers to the right of the decimals in the two numbers that we're multiplying. So we need that many numbers to the right of the decimal in our answer. So we go 1, 2, 3, put the decimal right over there. So 32.12 times 0.5 is 16.060. And this trailing 0 right here we can ignore because it's really not adding any information there. So we can just write this as 16.06. Now the last thing you want to do is just kind of make sure that this makes sense. You have a number that's almost 32, and we're multiplying it by 0.5. Remember, 0.5 is the same thing as 5 over 10, which is the same thing as 1/2. So we're really multiplying 32.12 times 1/2. We're trying to figure out what 1/2 of 32.12 is. And, well, half of 32 is 16, and then half of 0.12 is 0.06, so this makes complete sense.
Now let's practice multiplying fractions with a video from Mahala.com.
Hey guys, it's Julie with Mahala.com, and we're going to talk about multiplying fractions. Now, out of all 4 functions, addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division, multiplying fractions is actually the easiest thing to do with fractions, so don't be nervous. Let's start with a problem. 2/3 times 1/2. Now when you add or subtract fractions, you need to have a common denominator in order to add or subtract the fractions. You don't have to worry about any of those with multiplying. It's just as simple as multiply the top, multiply the bottom, and reduce. So the top, 2 times 1 is 2. The bottom, 3 times 2 is 6. 2, 6. Now it's a good thing to find out what your instructor wants if you're going to be taking an exam. Some instructors are okay with this as your final answer. But make sure you read the directions, because sometimes in the directions it will say reduce all answers. And if they're asking you to reduce, you would probably get this wrong, because you can reduce it more. So how do we reduce this? Reduce this to 1/3. So technically, your final answer to 2/3 times 1/2 is 1/3. Thanks for learning with me today. If you'd like to learn more about this topic or anything else having to do with math, please feel free to click the links on the screen.
Okay, it's your turn now. Practice these problems in your notebook and bring them to class tomorrow. Show all your work. Remember, you are using no calculators here, so be sure to show all your work. See you tomorrow.